everybody, and welcome to Geopolitical Trends, where truth matters. Excited to be with you as always. I know I told you when we did our earlier live stream at noon, I told you we're going to be having Carl Zahir. So he is right here. So I'm going to just bring him in and we're going to get into the topic because there are a lot to cover. But just heads up, guys, remember to join me tomorrow for the community conversation at 12:15 Central Standard Time. So I look forward to that one. All right, let me bring in Carl here. Hey, Carl.
Hi, David. How are you?
Good to see you, man. Finally, you are here. Everybody was wondering how's Carl doing. I said, well, I'm hoping he's doing fine, recuperating, and here you are. Good to see you, brother. I'm very glad that, your health is improving and all that. It was a scary moment when I heard about the accident, and I was like, no, let's hope not something major. So I'm glad things turned out very good.
It was scary for me too, David. It was scary for me
well, too. it's yeah. I didn't realize, Carl, it was a motorcycle. I thought it was a car. It was a vehicle. But motorcycles are far more dangerous than a vehicle. But in any event, glad to see you in one piece. Glad to have you as always here. So we're gonna get into our conversation because we got a lot to cover. So I'd like to start, Carl, with one particular event that just took place on the 25th of this month. We're talking about 2 days ago. What are you guys looking at is the Japanese Maritime Self-Defense Force that crossed through the Taiwan Strait. What do you make out of this, Carl? Why the heck the Japanese self-defense maritime force here is going through Taiwan Strait? What's the point of all this?
Well, this is just an increasing level of provocation from U.S. and its vassal states. Now, this is not the first instance. In fact, the couple months ago, the Japanese warship actually, when they transit through Taiwan Strait, they claim, it's international water, whatever. But a couple months ago, a Japanese warship, a Japanese destroyer, actually went inside China's territorial water. And yes, that was a big deal. And just recently, China, of course, raised a protest. And just recently, Japan has said they have sacked the captain of that ship, which intruded into the Chinese territorial water. But this is just a series of provocations from all these U.S. client states. It's not only Japan. There's also Germany. Germany also sent warships through Taiwan Strait. Germany and Italy, all these European countries that you would think have nothing to do in East Asia are sending their warships through Taiwan Strait. And the only reason they're doing that is now to please their master in Washington. It's really a pledge allegiance, like, hey, we are still loyal to you. We respect you as a big mafia don, so we do whatever you want us to do. This is what's it about. This is why there's escalating tension in South China Sea in between Philippines and China, even though there was a period in July when it looks like the things had calmed down a little bit. When Philippines and China actually negotiated a deal to return to the 2014 Gentleman's Agreement. But U.S. came back in the next day and offered Philippines $500 million worth of military aid. And by the way, those military aids are not free. Like when people talk about military aid from the United States, those are not free. Only freebies that U.S. will give out is to Israel. Like if your name is not Israel, you're not gonna get freebies from the United States. It's either loan or all this money gets cycled back to the U.S. military industrial complex, of course. So after that, the tension worsened in South China Sea. Now we have more a ship bumping incident between Chinese Coast Guard and the Filipino Navy. And this is all to justify the continued existence of U.S. military in East Asia and expanding U.S. military presence. But this is interesting because this is happening at the same time when what's happening in Israel in Middle East is requiring U.S. Naval presence over there. U.S. keep on sending aircraft carriers to Mediterranean, to Gulf of Oman, because they wanted to intimidate Hezbollah and Iran from retaliating against Israel.
Yeah.
At the same time, I guess it's almost like the United States is run like it's a many-headed beast. There's like many factions fighting on how U.S. hegemony should be run. There's a lot of people who wants to concentrate all the resources in East Asia to confront China. But then there's like the NATO bureaucrats who wanted to, plow more resources into Korean War. And then of course, Israel lobby in Washington wants everything to go into Middle East to confront Iran. So this is a imperial overreach problem, and like this is not, in the end, U.S. is not doing well in either of the front. I mean, like all three fronts. United States is not able to constrain Israel in its escalation, because everyone knows Israel is just trying to start a wider war, and they want to drag United States in deeper. And
it's the U.S. that's going to be fighting the war. So
exactly, they want U.S. to bleed and die for Israel, and the U.S. politician can't say no, because that they all bought and paid for it, especially the Congress. We have the best politician money can buy in the Congress.
So let me go back to your point earlier about the South China Sea. Just to think in terms of from a security perspective, do you believe that this kind of maneuvers suggest that the next conflict front is South China Sea?
Well, I think South China Sea flashing point is actually more. It's more of a hotspot than say Taiwan, actually, because like China, the split between China and mainland China and Taiwan has happened over 70 years, and China is pretty patient on that front, but U.S. right now is trying to leverage the U.S.-Philippine Mutual Defense Treaty as a way to pivot back to Asia, pivot to confront China. Now, this really depends on how much Pentagon wants to start a hot war, because they can't dial. They are the one who can really dial up the tension if they want, because right now they're letting Filipino taking the brunt of this conflict, and while they sit in the back, but if they decide, okay, it's time to send in the U.S. Navy, then that's going to be, then it's quite likely that there's going to be some it could be escalating to a conflict. But I don't think Pentagon at this point is ready for the reasons I listed above, because the U.S. involvement in Ukraine and also Middle East. So those two theaters have to wind down first. This is what a lot of the U.S. strategists are arguing about. It's like, okay, like John Mearsheimer is arguing we should wrap up Ukraine, make peace with Russia, and we should get out of Middle East so we can concentrate on China, because the U.S. resource is limited. People in Washington don't realize, it's not the unipolar world anymore. U.S. empire's resource is limited. You can't fight three-front war. But right now we have a complete political paralysis in Washington, because we're in an election year. Joe Biden, nobody knows what he's doing, and then you have Kamala, and then Trump. We don't even know who's going to be the president, right, at this point. So right now, I don't expect a big blow up before the election. That's my take.
Well, I'm sure they're going to be waiting until the outcome. But in the meantime, I'm sure you're aware of what the legislation that Congress passed for the $1.6 billion for the propaganda against China and so forth. But also what's been reported in Wall Street Journal about the submarine, the Chinese, which I was laughing at. Can you share that story, Carl? I'm sure a lot of people don't know much about it.
So this is the timing of this Wall Street Journal story is very suspicious. Right after China's successful test of ICBM, that was launched from China towards South Pacific. Wall Street Journal immediately came out a story says senior U.S. official claim that back in May and June this year, they had intelligence saying there may have been a accident happening at a Chinese shipyard in Wuhan, where the latest model of Chinese nuclear submarine has sunk, and they have ships trying to salvage it. Now, the only evidence they present is a picture of the Wuhan shipyard where they have bunch of dredging ship was lining up. So this picture was actually like this story actually broke a few months earlier by like a U.S. naval watcher, Tom Shugart, and it was been debunked because first of all, why would China build a nuclear submarine 1,000 kilometers away from the sea, deep in the Yangtze River? All the Chinese shipyard that builds nuclear submarines are on the coast, either in Oualaalou in Shandong province or in the Jiangnan shipyard near Shanghai. Why do you, it doesn't make sense to have a shipyard building a nuclear sub on the Yangtze River 1,000 kilometers away from the sea. And when people look into it, the average depth of Yangtze River in Wuhan is about 5 meters deep. And the latest Chinese nuclear sub that U.S. claimed that was sunk, its draft is 7.5 meters. So you can't even sink. You will just sit there and you will see the top of the sub above the water. But that's not what we saw in the photo. All this photo we just saw a bunch of dredging ships, and it's most likely what they're just trying to dredge up that section of the river rather than trying to salvage a so-called sunk submarine. So it doesn't make sense. And the Wall Street Journal even goes even further to speculate. Says, there may be a nuclear radioactive leak. Now, first of all, they put up a speculation, which is totally ridiculous, and then they speculate on top of that speculation, and they use weasel. Whenever they use weasel words like may is doing a lot of work. Basically saying we have no evidence, but this could happen. If a nuclear submarine sunk, then maybe there could be radioactive leak, which means they know nothing. And again, that the timing of the story is really suspicious because you can. This story basically, this was an internet rumor that was circulated for a couple of months on Twitter, and suddenly Wall Street Journal picked it up and published it right after a successful launch of Chinese ICBM. And mind you, a United States intelligence official also claimed that Chinese rockets are filled with water. This was from a couple of years ago. They reported the Chinese strategic rockets were filled with water. So I guess those same rockets that just filled with water just travel 12,000 kilometers to the Pacific. I mean, this is the same type of and this is, I think this is also why China decided to try to do the ICBM test, because this is the first Chinese ICBM test in 44 years. The last time China launched an ICBM to South Pacific was 1980, when I was 4 years old. And I think this is a reminder to the dum-dums in Washington that they shouldn't believe in their own propaganda. No, Chinese rockets are not filled with water. They can travel. And this ICBM, it looks, I look at a different analyst report, they think this is a model Dongfeng 31, which is not the latest generation. The latest generation is Dongfeng 41, which will travel further. But this is how China normally publicize their tests. They don't publicize the result from their latest weapons because they want to keep the United States guessing. So they tested their older generation ICBM Dongfeng 31, which travels have a range of 12,000 kilometers. Now, what does 12,000 kilometer mean for people who are listening? 12,000 kilometers means China can target anywhere inside continental United States. That's what it means. This is and this is why, like, people say, why China testing ICBM? You know, like, they don't need to put on Taiwan on notice or Japan. I'm like, look, China does not need ICBM to hit Taiwan or Japan. So the only signal they're sending is there's only one possible country they're sending this signal to, and that's United States. They're showing United States, like, look, we can hit anywhere on continental United States. That's what they're saying. It's like, don't believe your own propaganda from Wall Street Journal that says our rockets fill with water, or our nuclear submarine it has sunk in the Yangtze River. I mean, so right now, I don't know how much, like, these kind of stories.
I have a picture.
Wall Street, Go ahead. But these kind of stories from Wall Street Journal, they're just copiants. They're just copiant to tell people, like, don't worry, if we get into a hot conflict with China, they won't have second strike capability to hit United States, so we can go ahead and push China's buttons. So that's what those articles really doing. And maybe this is part of the $1.6 billion Congress approved for the anti-China propaganda. Maybe Wall Street Journal got their money early.
I wonder if they're gonna retract the story, Carl. Because I don't know if they will admit that it wasn't a true story. Will they have the gut to retract the story? So I doubt.
But it doesn't really matter, David, because even if they come out with a correction a couple months later, they will do it like in a small print, and then everybody will have forgot about it already. And usually it's the correction never make as much never has a wide reach of the audience than the first wild claim. All the wild claim about social credit, people still believe the social credit story, even though that has been debunked, and that has been, I think it was Foreign Affairs published an article on how the social credit story is a myth. But nobody seemed to read the debunking article. Everybody remembered the first original claim. But this is how propaganda works, David. They first make the claim that have this idea circulate in the widest circle, and then they publish like a retracting article, which nobody reads. But their aim has already accomplished. Their aim was to see this propaganda inside people's head, and it has a life of its own, and that's how it works. I mean, U.S. is master at this.
I have pictures here, Carl, for the D41. That's those are the advanced ones for Chinese.
So Dongfeng 41 is the latest Chinese ICBM. They can actually have a range of 15,000 kilometers.
Wow.
Which they don't even need that to reach. The Dongfeng 31 can already reach all the cities inside continental United States, but I mean, Dongfeng 41 will be an overkill. But anyway, that's why they haven't even tested it, because they want before this latest ICBM test, China actually informed Russia and they informed United States. So U.S. actually sent out its spy planes to monitor the trajectory, because China don't want like Russia and United States to have the wrong ideas about this is an attack.
Yeah.
So they actually informed the two countries beforehand. Now there are countries like Japan was being butthurt, like, why didn't China alert us? Like, first of all, the ICBM was not even like anywhere close toward Japan, and also Japan doesn't have its own missile capability to strike China, so China doesn't have to worry about it. It's like, why do I need to inform you?
You're useless.
Yeah, exactly. Why do I need to inform you? And then but they did inform U.S. and Russia, so the two countries that do have nuclear strike capability don't get misunderstanding. So but again, this is just a way to it's a signal. It's a way to send a signal to let people in Washington know, like, hey, our rockets are not filled with water. They can hit you.
Incredible. So before we jump into talking about the German economy, I like to have your take on the upcoming BRICS summit. which is going to be on October 22nd through the 24th in Kazan. So, my wish was always to attend it as an observer. So, but anyway, what do you see coming out of that summit? We're looking at about 54 countries planning to attend.
Well, first of all, it shows that U.S. and NATO's effort to isolate Russia internationally has failed. And when all these countries are traveling to Russia to attend the BRICS summit, and two, it's just amazing this BRICS acronym, originally coined by Goldman Sachs as a marketing ploy, is now becoming a real alternative to the West-dominated international forums. And now everyone wants to be like everyone who is not part of the U.S. NATO, alliance, but now wants to be part of the BRICS because they're the new kids on the block. This is U.S. will probably huff and puff. They just like how they protested how China is supporting Russia through trade. Now everyone is traveling to Russia. Basically that U.S. will see that as a middle finger to them, but there's nothing they can do because U.S. is not that popular outside of the so-called collective West. People are kind of sick and tired of kind of the just U.S. hegemonic designs on their part of the world. So that's that.
Very, very interesting. All right, let's talk about Germany. Germany and where it is headed with the kind of where their economy is and so forth. So, well, I had a chance to read a report. And by the way, guys, I will put the link for you later on in the description. The shares of the Mercedes, I have a picture right here, Carl. If it shows up. There we go. So the shares of Mercedes-Benz fell by more than 7% recently after the German car maker lowered its full-year profit outlook due to further deterioration. And this has to do with the Chinese demand. In other words, less Chinese demand has sank Mercedes down. Now, there are these studies that they are suggesting that the German economy is about to contract in this year, 2024. Where do you see this is going, and what's causing this? Besides,
Germany has been self-sabotaging for like many years now. Just 2 years ago, foreign brand automakers. They dominate more than 50% of the Chinese car market. The Chinese auto market is actually the world's largest car market. It's much bigger than the United States. So if you want to make money, you have to be in China. And for decades, all the Germans, Japanese, Americans, they were all in China making money head and over heels. But then they got complacent because they're like, okay, these Chinese guys, they will never, they're not a threat to us. So we dominate the majority of the Chinese market. We have all these local partnerships. All these new Chinese upstarts are they're not threat. This is why, like 10 years ago, Elon Musk, when he was asked about BYD, he laughed. He's like, BYD, they have to survive in China first. But what happened was the electric vehicle transition, the new energy transition, because all these big automakers are so comfortable resting on their laurels and their dominance of the market. They didn't see the change coming. Like Chinese government roll out a roadmap on how the country is going to transition from traditional fossil fuel to new energy vehicles. They had like a 5-year plan, many 5 years plans on when they're going to do this. But these foreign automakers, they didn't take it seriously. They thought this is like the California mandate, right? They thought this is a California mandate for new energy. Because I remember I moved to LA back in 1995 for college, and back then California already had this ambitious roadmap. But forget about that. So
California's gone. California's gone now.
So what? Just this month, for the first time, Chinese new auto sales, more than 50% of the new car sales are new energy vehicles, are electric vehicles. That's huge. I mean, China is the world's largest car market, and suddenly more than 50% of the new cars sold are now in new energy vehicles. And the
Yeah.
German automaker in particular, German and Japanese as well, also, they did not. They were so invested in the old internal combustion engine cars, they did not catch on to this transition. And this is what allowed the domestic Chinese car brand to kind of leapfrog the technology. You know, they realize, okay, we're always couple generations behind of Japanese and Germans in terms of internal combustion engine cars. But you know, the new energy vehicle, this is completely new. It's a level playing field. We can actually take a lead here, and that's what they did. They put all their capital and jump into that market. And now they're leading the world in terms of electric vehicles. And this is why when they talk about Chinese overcapacity, what they're actually talking about is all these German, Japanese, and even American cars that were originally made in China for Chinese consumers. Now they're not being sold because Chinese consumers are buying new energy vehicles, so they have to export these cars that was sitting on the lot that no Chinese consumer are buying. So they have to export them back to the home market, and this is why the car export numbers out of China is skyrocketing. One big part is these foreign car makers are exporting their own overcapacity back to their home market, and so Germany also, they also have the problem of they cut themselves off from the Russian gas, and now all the German industrialists are decamping to United States where they can still have a cheap natural gas. And it's a tough. This is a problem when you are like a puppet government of the U.S. You do what's for the best interest of Washington. You're not doing what's best in the best interest of the German consumers or German workers. And this is why I don't know, man. I don't know when the European voters will ever wake up to the fact that their leaders are not beholden to them. Their leaders are beholden to Washington, and that's a real problem.
And this is why, like, Germany now is purchasing gas from the U.S. at a higher price. So I was like, surprised and shocked at that decision. And now I see why the recent trip to China by the Spanish Prime Minister, Pedro Sanchez, he was in China, and I think he's going against the EU regarding the decision of the tariffs, because he's seeing where things are moving with the markets in, for example, Hungary, in Serbia, and even the Polish president now is hinting at the Chinese to consider certain type of investment. So is this why you're Carl?
Yeah, I mean, this is why China is pouring investment into Serbia and Hungary. They're willing to invest, into other countries but it's the U.S. and EU. They're putting up the trade barrier. They want to protect their own, own corporate interest. And but remember what Donald Trump said? Donald Trump said he would allow the Chinese to invest in U.S. He would welcome the Chinese EV makers to come to U.S. to invest in factories. But the problem with the U.S. is, okay, even if Donald Trump gets elected, what happens after 4 years?
Exactly.
U.S. The investment, to put down a factory and to get a return on the investment, it takes like more than 4 years. And the Chinese automaker have to think, okay, if I put a lot of money in U.S., are they going to change their policy after another election and throw all that stuff out? I mean, that happened before. So
indeed,
why don't they just put their factory in Mexico, right? Where they don't have the same problem. And this is another problem in the right now. The thing is, China, it all comes down to the U.S. right now is losing competitive edge versus China. And actually, I just recently saw a article from Business Standard. It says, right now, the biggest reason for peace between China and U.S. is disappearing. And the article's arguing because the U.S. businesses are losing their competitive edge in China. So the U.S. business lobby are no longer going to bat for engagement with China, which is a kind of crazy argument. It's saying, okay, so if U.S. companies are not making profit in China, then we have to go to war. I mean, like, it's not a binary choice, guys. This is never a binary choice. But this is actually the same logic underlying the decoupling policy that's pushed by Pentagon, because the idea is, well, if we have less economic entanglement with China, if a hot war breaks out, then we have less backlash to worry about. So let's move our supply chains outside of China, so it's easier for us to get into a hot conflict with China. I mean, this is really crazy logic. Like, it doesn't it's almost like the peaceful existence doesn't. It's not in their vocabulary. It's either we have to make a profit or we're gonna go into war against you. This is like really crazy.
Doesn't make sense. Yeah. Well, this is why Apple is maintaining its operations in China. They don't care what the U.S. government says with that, because they are realizing, to my knowledge, they have moved some of their operations out of India and bring them back to China, because they're realizing there is no otherwise. Huawei will overtake in due time Apple products. I mean, to me, I see the writing on the wall.
This is why back then when Obama asked Steve Jobs, when Steve Jobs was still alive, it's like, why can't you move the iPhone factory? Why can't we make iPhones in the United States? And Steve Jobs told him, like, no, because there's no skills in the United States. We don't have this manufacturing skills in U.S. Because what Steve Jobs is saying is U.S. has hollowed out its manufacturing industry for so long, for so many decades, for the last 40 years. Now there's a knowledge gap. There's when you don't manufacture for 40 years, you lose the people with the knowledge of manufacturing. And China is full of skilled labor, and this is why. But again, this shows another side of how U.S. is really the business that's calling the shots. You can never imagine Jack Ma tells Xi Jinping, it's like, no, I'm gonna move my factory to another country. I'm not gonna like Xi Jinping was like, no, okay. I'm sorry. Then Alibaba is gonna be locked out of the Chinese market. What are you talking about? The U.S. president can never say no. Even Obama, as a president of the United States, he would just, with the answer like that from Steve Jobs, there's nothing he could do, because ultimately money runs the United States. But in China, it's a vice versa. The government get to tell the business what to do. If Jack Ma tells Xi Jinping, like, no, we're not going to invest in China, Xi Jinping was like, what are you talking about? Like, you want me to break up Alibaba into smaller companies? I mean, that's what's going to happen. And so this is this is another. There's another reason U.S. is falling behind, basically, because we're kind of being run by these business oligarchs who are more interested in monopoly and not really interested in competition.
Yeah. And very interesting how the example you provided between Jack Ma and President Xi, and that's, to me, beside that kind of scenario, it highlights the importance of serving the people. It's because for the interest of the people why the decision will have to be made the way it has to be made. So it makes perfect sense, and I can see now the changes as to why we are here in the U.S. very concerned about the progress of the technological advancements in China, to the point that we are like, there is a conversation behind closed doors here, Carl. I'll tell you, because I talk to some people who are well connected, and the conversation is always, how can we compete? How can we compete? We don't produce. Our universities are not producing those kind of skills. the system in itself is not set up to push things forward. Instead of you have to care about this and care about that. The Chinese, they don't have that.
But David,
Yeah.
for decades now, United States had been doing basically a brain drain on the rest of the world to choose the top talent to come to US to make up for the lack of college graduates in the STEM field. So that's why in the 1990s, when I first came to United States, I visited my dad's lab in University of Illinois. Like all the researchers are Chinese, and you know, if you go to Silicon Valley, like engineers are either Chinese or Indians. But now what United States government has been doing since the Trump administration is they're hounding all the Chinese origin researchers, scientists, you know, like, because it's not even just racism. It's just people like some ambitious bureaucrats in FBI. If they want to further their own career, you know, the easiest thing they could do is go target some ethnic Chinese scientists and researchers and claim they're involved in some kind of espionage. And this is for them a way to climb the career ladder. This is how US is run, right? Everything is about jobs and career. And what ended up happening, they put up so much pressure on ethnic Chinese researchers and scientists. Now they're returning in droves back to mainland China. I mean, they were already returning since 2000 because after Chinese economy start taking off and there's more opportunity in China. But now, even the ones that has decided to stay in US because maybe they're complacent and comfortable in US now feel pressure to return to China because they're being harassed by the FBI. And again, this is another self-sabotage the U.S. government is carrying out on its own economy. Like one of the pillar of the U.S. technological edge is the ability to draw talent from all over the world, you know, to power Silicon Valley, for example. But right now they are just, you know, they're just cutting out half of that because like Silicon Valley, you go to Silicon Valley, it's either Indian or Chinese. And now they're saying the Chinese engineers and Chinese scientists are now welcome. You have dum-dums like Tom Cotton in Congress saying, oh, when the Chinese students come over, they're welcome to study humanities, but we shouldn't let them study we shouldn't welcome the Chinese to study science and math in our universities. This is crazy. Like these congressmen probably don't even realize how much U.S. Research institution relies on Chinese labor. But you know, then again, they don't know anything.
Well, I was aware of the case. Yeah, you're right. I was aware of the case of what's her name, Sherry Chang. If I'm not mistaken, I have kept a picture in my computer from way back, and that's an old story that the FBI. Let me dig up her picture right here. You know, this is Sherry Chang, was a hydrologist at the National Weather Service right here at MIT before she was fired, and she was wrongfully terminated. And later on, the judge awarded her about $2 million because it was wrong what they did to her at MIT. And she's a scientist of Chinese descent. So you're absolutely correct. And a lot of scientists, there is now a brain drain in the US. It's moving out. This was
actually happening long before. I mean, like I'm in U.S. long enough to remember the Wen-Ho Lee case back in 1998 during the Clinton administration. Wen-Ho Lee was a Taiwan. He was originally from Taiwan, and he moved to U.S. to pursue his career. And he was a nuclear physicist working in Los Alamos nuclear laboratory. And when the news came out, when China possessed MIRV capability, which is one ICBM can carry multiple nuclear warhead, you know, all Americans immediately say, okay, China must have stole that technology. So let's find out who is the Chinese most. So of course they look for the ethnic Chinese scientists in Los Alamos, and the zero on Wenho Li because he had some trips, like family trips, business trips to mainland China, and then they. In the end, they never found anything about Wenho Li, but that got Wenho Li fired. In the end, the U.S. agreed to pay Wenho Li a couple $1 million to pay for the legal fees, but they refused to pay like a compensation, because if you pay compensation, you will admit U.S. government did something wrong. So they only so they only pay like the legal fees. And the Wenho Li wrote a book, and anyway, like this kind of witch hunt. This started back in 1998, but it just got a lot worse, like in the recent years. And again, it's kind of stemmed from this belief: any kind of Chinese advancing technology, they must stole it from U.S. So the way we're gonna stop that is we're gonna remove all the Chinese working in the top science fields, which is really crazy, like just two top nanoscientists from U.S., two Chinese researchers. They just decide to move back to China and to sign on with Chinese universities, because they find it impossible to continue their work in U.S. anymore. And in the end, is the U.S. is losing talent. One of the edge that U.S. had was the ability to draw talent from all over the world. Now they're saying like, okay, we don't want talented people from China because we're afraid of like informational leakages that allow China to advance technologically, which is really crazy.
Yeah. Well, that's why there's my sort of a dear friend of mine, Dr. Dashwan Fang. He sent me a link one time too, and that's what I saw the stats. 45% of brain drains now are leaving the United States and going back to their home country. As a matter of fact, I don't know if you know this, Carl, or not, but over I think either 55 or 60% of PhD holders right here in the US are foreign born, not Americans. So I happen to be one of those. So I wasn't born here. So, but you're absolutely correct. There is this brain drain now that is going, but also because we are realizing our institutions here, academia, that is, it's not producing enough. Well, because the curriculum without getting into academia, the setting and all that, there is no more teaching here in the U.S. institutions, because you have to worry about how students feel, or rather how they think. Because that's what it was, Carl. I remember when I was in a classroom and I had in a master's degree, and I would challenge the students, and half of the class were foreign born. They were eager to learn. I am not here to worry about how you feel. I'm here to worry about how you think. And we don't have that anymore here in the US. And that's, to me, the sign why personally I decided not to teach anymore here in the US. And I am considering some options outside. By the way, Carl, I was told I need to check Fudan University in Shanghai. Do you know anything about that?
Fudan University?
Yeah.
FUDAN. Oh, yeah.
That's correct.
Fudan University is one of the top university in China.
Okay.
Like Fudan, Tsinghua, Peking universities are all like top universities.
Okay.
So just whether you want to live in Beijing or Shanghai. If you want to live in Shanghai, then Fudan University is the way to go.
Fudan University. Okay. I'm gonna check it out. So. All right. Let's talk about one other aspect that just want to get again. When I have you here for our monthly conversation, I always like to pick your brain on usually, especially with the events that took place and so forth. Well, one of them, Carl, has to do with the U.S. backing 2 permanent seats for African nations at the UN Security Council. But there is a caveat to that. They told them, we will not give you veto power.
So this is another point.
It's an insult.
This is an instance where U.S. realized they have an image problem in the global South. They wanted to compete with Russia and China for influence in the global South. So they come up with this idea. Okay, well, let's do this symbolic thing of backing African countries entry to permanent membership in the Security Council, which nobody could argue that, like that. How nobody can argue against that, right? But then they have to put in like, well, actually, we don't actually want them to be able to say no. We don't want them the African to actually veto ourselves. So we're gonna take away their veto power. I mean, like, what's the point? What's the point of promoting them to the Permanent Security Council then? Like, the whole point of permanent membership is they can veto, and yet, U.S. of course do not want anybody to be able to say no to their proposals in UN. So they come up with this kind of half harebrained scheme like this. I mean, it actually, like, it was a good idea, to promote African membership. But you're gonna take away their veto power. What is the point? I mean, it's just a PR stunt. That's what it is. It's a public relations stunt.
Yeah. That's why when I read that, and I kind of just shook my head, because to me, I looked at it like an insult, which is an insult to begin with. No, you don't do, because that's how you perceive African to be, by giving them orders. So hey, you're gonna sit at the table. It's like you having lunch or dinner with someone tells you just sit at the table, but don't eat lunch or don't eat dinner. It's an insult.
It's like, okay, I will give you the Security Council seat, but it's a second-class security seat. This is a second-class security seat we reserve for Africans. Of course, it's an insult.
I think Carl, the U.S. wanted to do this to allure African countries because they are seeing the changes regarding the economic ventures that they are doing with China, the African countries with China. Also, what we're seeing in the Sahel region after kicking out the U.S. out of Niger permanently, and of course with the nationalization of the 2 gold mine in Burkina Faso. So I think they're seeing all this by saying, well, how about if we give you a seat? But I don't think so Africans going to buy that because they can't trust the U.S. government. That's what's at the heart of it. So the way I see it. All right, let's take some questions from our members here, community. First of all, I want to say thank you to Boone. Good to see you, Boone. Boone is coming to us from Germany. So good to see you. Question: would Russia ending the Ukraine war before or after U.S. elections be more strategically beneficial? Thanks. Get well soon, Carl.
Well, thank you, Alboom. The thing is, I think for Russia right now, they're pursuing the war for their own interests. So they're not timing this according to the U.S. election. I mean, U.S. it doesn't really matter. I think either way. I know Trump has publicly said that he would try to negotiate for peace in Ukraine, and he want to. But we saw what happened in the first Trump term. Trump said the same thing. He said he want to reset with Russia, but Trump lost the fight with the deep state. Like the deep state pushed him to have even worse relationship with Russia. So I don't think Trump is gonna, like, people think, oh, okay, Trump is fighting against deep state. Look, Trump never won against the deep state. He's not gonna win this. I don't think he's gonna win this time either. Even if he wins the presidency, the deep state is still gonna run the show. So I don't expect any. I mean, Russians probably smart enough to realize that too. They're just gonna continue to pursue the war to maximize the territorial gain and also their own maximize their own security on that front, regardless of the election results in the United States. I think that's
and on one of the things Trump already said that if he wins the election, he's going to impose tariffs on Chinese. So the right hand, Trump is a showman. He's, he doesn't understand doing so is going to impact the average citizen here as far as prices. He just doesn't get it.
I mean, he's like, I saw the debate he had with Kamala. He's building like the tariff on China is a great success because it gave us all this money. But you know what? All that money is not coming from China. That's coming from the U.S. consumer. You are taxing it's a tax by other means. You are increasing by jacking up the price. The U.S. consumer just have to pay more.
That is true. That is true. Speaking the truth, give peace. Thank you very much for your super sticker. Truly appreciate you for that. So here is a question for you from me, Carl. Where do you see the U.S.-China relations post American presidential elections? What do you anticipate and what do you expect?
Well, unfortunately, I don't see much prospect for improvement in whether Trump or Kamala wins the election. I mean, Kamala administration is just going to be the same old policy from Biden administration, and Trump. There might be. There might be some initial confusions because Trump is he's a wild card. He might throw the U.S. Deep state into a loop for a little while, but he's not going to win the fight against the U.S. Deep state. So it's going to be the same policy toward China, and the factional Republicans that Trump represent, they're not really friendly toward China anyway. They just want to make up with Russia but still compete with China. So the U.S.-China relationship, unfortunately, we're on a trajectory. It's a downward trend, and it's not gonna. We are basically looking at Cold War 2.0 right now. We are in a undeclared Cold War 2.0. I mean, and this is brought on by the U.S. government. China does not want this. President Xi Jinping has said more than once, the world is big enough for both China and U.S. to prosper together. We don't need to make a competition. But U.S. repeatedly said we wanted to make this a zero-sum competition, and unfortunately, as long as the hegemonic mindset is in the brain of U.S. elites, this situation is not going to improve. So I'm a little bit pessimistic about this, but what I'm positive about is the ability of U.S. to influence the global events is becoming more and more diminished. So, no matter what U.S. do and U.S. say, China, the global South, they will power ahead. They will power ahead to forge their own relationship. They will continue to grow their economic ties, and there's not much U.S. could do about it.
Yeah. And speaking of global South, which leads us to the next question from Francis Tango. Does that mean that other countries can sanction the United States?
Well, I don't think other countries are interested in sanctioning U.S. I mean, even China wants to do business with U.S. It's a U.S. that wants to sanction everybody. But what happens when U.S. sanction China? It sanctions itself because everything is made in China. So this is kind of the conundrum that the U.S. elite is facing with, that they're caught screaming because they don't really know how to solve this problem. That's why they think they will magically decouple with China, and then they can make their problem go away. But that just create even more problems. Right now, all the decoupling has done is the previously the Chinese goods that shipped directly from China to United States, they get rerouted through Vietnam and Mexico, and U.S. consumers pay a premium, and that's what happened.
Wow. Yeah. Well, even the Europeans been talking about decoupling, but it was just hypes, no more, no less. So you can't trust Western leaders anymore because there is no competency left whatsoever, because the interest of the constituents is not a priority. That's the way I see it. So, well, Carl, I can't thank you enough, man, for really, really carving out time for us here as always. I always look for this monthly conversation with you, and I look forward to the one next month at the end of October, and I'll be back from Asia at that time. So once again, thank you so much, Carl. On behalf of the entire community, I'll say thank you. And by the way, guys, hold on a second before you guys leave, or I need to show you where to get the links for Carl Za. I have them right here. I'm going to post them for you on the screen by creating a banner. Here we go. Add the banner and put it right there. So this is the YouTube channel for Carl Za. He has a YouTube channel there. What is the channel about, Carl, for those who do not know?
Well, you will find interviews like this where I talk with people about China. I mean, my channel is all about China, basically.
Great.
Culture, politics, history.
Hey, that's
And
yeah.
yeah, this is what I'm passionate about. I can talk for hours about any topic on China.
Well, you provide insights and a different perspective that others don't get a chance to hear. And second, thanks you guys see there. That's the Carl's handle on Twitter X. So I follow him on X. If you guys just go to @Carlza and just follow him there, he posts a lot of stuff there. I read his posts and comments and all that stuff. Very, very informative if you are interested in learning something. So once again, Carl, thank you so much and greatly appreciate you being here. Guys, hope you find this very informative. And remember to join me tomorrow at 12:15 for our community conversation. And I'll be sharing with you some pictures from my recent trip to Eastern Europe. I was also near the Baltic Sea. I had to go check out a few things there. In addition to when I go on speaking event, I get some day off or 2 or 3, whatever that is. And I kind of just look around so I can share some information with you. So I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. As always, remember, geopolitics impacts your daily life in more ways than one. Till next time, guys. Bye-bye.